Finance Subcommittee B, specifically on the proposed fiscal year 2015 budgets of the following agencies: Department of Energy and its attached agencies, the Energy Regulatory Commission, the National Electrification Administration, the National Power Corporation, and the PNOC, is hereby resumed. Good morning, Mr. Secretary. Good morning to all our colleagues and associates in the energy family. At the outset, as I was reviewing the transcripts of the past two hearings, I made an error on the open access of Meralco. It is 30%, as you said, Mr. Secretary. I was confused with the reason, but not the excuse. So I was confused with the sources of power of Meralco, which is 9% WSM at that time when we conducted the hearing last November, last year. Of the 30% open access, does anybody have any information how much of those companies have actually recontracted with Meralco? I understand it's a sizable chunk. They're hedging their bets. So even if they were qualified to contract, nag 50-50 yata sila. 50% with a new supplier directly and 50% dinaan pa sa Meralco. Would it be ERC who would have that information?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have some data on the number of contestable customers within the Meralco franchise area that chose to remain as part of the captive market of Meralco.
Yes, and the volume, no?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have that total megawatt.
Kasi under the RESA, yung nag-register under RESA, I'm not too clear yet. I have not checked into the RESA. Sino nagre-register sa RESA? Both the buyers and sellers? Or sellers lang? In other words, ako may-ari na isang planta, generating plant. Siyempre, if I want to be able to sell to the contestable market, magre-register ako sa RESA with the Retail Electricity Suppliers Association, di ba?
Mr. Chair, these suppliers, they obtain a license from ERC, and it is voluntary with them if they will be joining the association of the RES licensees.
So the numbers will not be exact then because it's voluntary.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I understand there's something like 500 megawatts that's not been contracted. They are with RESA and they're waiting for something, and then I forgot what it was. Malaki-laki yun, ah.
Yes, Mr. Chair. There are contestable customers that have...
these are customers, so these are buyers. These
yes,
are
sir.
not generating companies.
No, sir.
Okay.
But
continue, yeah.
They cannot yet participate in the current form of the Interruptible Load Program because the program in its current form is available only to the captive customers of Meralco.
That's right. But the RESA has informed us informally that they have about 240 to 280 na gustong sumali. Paano yun kung wala pa tayong mechanics doon?
According to the RESA president, they have already discussed with Meralco the proposed mechanics on the ILP implementation in the contestable market. It would entail a redeclaration of the volume that the RESA is supposed to uh, sell to this ILP contestable in favor of Meralco. So it is as if it will be Meralco that is getting this power that the RESA is supposed to deliver to the ILP contestable customers.
Okay, let me get this clear now because RESA is just an association.
Yes, sir.
Would they have any operations? Will they operate a market or are they just a registry?
They are just, Mr. Chair, an association of the licensed RES. So, actually, it would be the individual RES that have contracts with contestable customers that will redeclare the contract volume in favor of Meralco. So, Meralco will, based on their submission or presentation to our staff, Meralco in effect would be the one buying the power that was initially supposedly or intended for the ILP contestable customer. They have an issue now as to who will be paying for the loading compensation that will be also claimed by the ILP contestable that will participate in the ILP. So there are just some details that they are ironing out, and they intend to write the commission on their final scheme. And what the commission intends to do is open this to public consultation so we can adopt the appropriate amendments to the existing ILP rules.
The problem that I see is that while that arrangement is just a matter of time, no, I mean, you just keep on meeting until you come to an agreement. That can be done. But the problem that I see, Mr. Secretary, is that here you have in the Luzon grid, we have about 3,100 megawatts of independent gensets. We should be targeting to get commitments from at least a half of them. And all I get is just this newspaper report that says, oh, we can't get any commitments from them. I don't know if it's a matter of attitude or... you see, like I said, the experience in Cebu, of course this is all captive market, is that about 15% of the peak demand of VECO, they were able to source from the genset group, about 65 megawatts. And of the 65, about 45 was steadily being delivered. So they had about 30% discount on what was available. So having said that, why aren't we targeting at least one half of that? Because if the total dependable capacity in the Luzon grid is about 11,000 megawatts, 15% of that is roughly 1,600, 1,700, 1,650 megawatts. And to me, from my point of view, I'm pretty sure that we can get it. And we can take 70% of that. At least 1,000 megawatts will be available during those 3 months that we need them. Why is that the comments coming out of the department are so defeatist, for lack of a better term?
Mr. Chair, can I answer?
Yes, please.
It's not. We've actually been promoting ILP since December. In fact, we've been pushing Meralco to actually be proactive in this because, in the end, although we will actually be involved in a sort of marketing, in the end, the commercial agreement is between Meralco and the supplier of electricity. So we've been doing that since December 2013. And to date, okay, we've actually been meeting with contestable customers. At one point, we've actually sat down with the one of the top 10 contestable customers who can actually participate in the ILP. In that meeting, there were about 10 contestable customers. I meet them in chunks of 10 so that we can put focus on their individual problems. And at that particular time, only 3 actually indicated that they will join the ILP. So we actually asked them, what is your problem? Because perhaps there are individual problems which we can address, the government can address, or perhaps Meralco can address. They have all sorts of varying problems. Some of them have indicated, some of them have actually flatly said that they cannot join. So we're still negotiating with them at this point. So if it comes out in the papers, Mr. Chair, that some are saying no, we're simply echoing what they've said, but we're continually doing everything we can to actually get them to participate in the ILP.
Thank you. I particularly would like to know later on who was that group that said they cannot join. Unless there's a physical reason for it. What will happen if Meralco just cuts off their use? Then they will have to use their own genset, diba? In that sense, they have joined. Let me get this clear. When you say join, they don't actually have to deliver power to the grid. All they have to do is stop using power from the grid. Correct? So, what do they mean when they say they cannot join?
Mr. Chair, we also presented that scenario to them, that we told them that anyway, if there is a brownout, okay, you will get hit just the same. But some people were probably speculating, depending on which feeder you're in, and because they're contestable, they have the rest of commitments to them.
No, remove the contestables first, because that's going to be a little complicated, but it ends up the same way anyway. Let's talk first about those that are within the Meralco franchise area, are captive customers of Meralco, or have elected to remain in the captive market of Meralco, but have said they're not going to be able to join.
Mr. Chair, in the captive area, okay, majority of them, or a lot of them, actually joined the ILP program, although what they have committed was not their full capacity. Okay, like in the case of SM, for example, they've only committed less than half of their total generating capacity, and mostly the ones they committed were the newer malls with the newer generating capacity. Yung mga luma, medyo hinuhuli nila. Okay, they said that, I don't know, for some reason they'd like to keep it in that manner. It's a negotiation between them and Meralco on why they prefer to keep some of their old gensets not to participate in the ILP, but the newer ones and the bigger ones, the bigger single unit ones, are actually being committed to the ILP. This is as far as captive is concerned.
How many megawatts did, more or less, did SM commit?
Less than 60 megawatts from the last count I had.
Okay.
About 58, 59 megawatts from my last recollection.
That's much less than half. I have the list of self-generating facilities in Luzon, and those corporations that I identified to be, just from memory, to be part of the Henry C. Group, they already amount to 151 megawatts. So to commit 59 is pretty low. And that's why we can make approaches, personal approaches to these groups, because they're withholding much of their capability to produce power. JG Summit, I added up to be 123 megawatts. Ayala, 98 megawatts. A group called United Pulp, 61 megawatts. Jollibee 47 megawatts, Shell 52 megawatts, Amcor 38 megawatts. And then, hindi kompleto ito, I'm sure, but San Miguel 28 megawatts and PLDT 24 megawatts. So between those nine, we already get 622 megawatts. And then there are groups that I've not been able to pinpoint here. The group of Andrew Tan, Megaworld, the group of George T., the Cement Group, the Steel Group, and others. So maybe if you do a master list and send us a copy, we can compare what you have with what we have. But it's totally unacceptable na, you know, mag-o-offer sila ng kakaunti lang. After all, they'll be affected, and anyway, they will get paid. Were you talking rates with them?
Mr. Chair, as far as the rate is concerned, it's the ILP approved rate given by ERC.
That's 14.
That's 0.34 liters per kilowatt hour. And more or less for these participating companies, the compensation is actually acceptable to them. For some, okay, in the contestable, but for the captive, nobody really complained to us about the rates. Officially, okay, unofficially, we're trying to get their feel whether this is acceptable to them or they can be compensated more. But so far, Mr. Chair, the rates is not it's not really the issue to them at this point as far as captive is concerned.
Yes, I get the same impression also. It's not an issue. What is your or projected estimate that our peak demand will be in the summer of 2015?
It's about 9,017.
So more or less 9,000.
9,000 to 9,100, Mr. Chair, because in the last, when we made a projection for 2014, we were off by about 100 megawatts.
Okay, so 9,100 megawatts. Does that include already the 4% regulating reserve?
That's just demand.
Okay. That's just demand. It doesn't
demand.
include the 4% reserve.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Our 4% reserve will about 400, no?
Roughly.
What is our total inventory now of the 11,000 megawatts of dependable capacity? Would the ERC have that? In other words, if you know the total, you know the breakdown. Let me confirm that with you, Mr. Secretary. Would you agree that 11,000 more or less is our dependable capacity today?
Roughly 11,400, Mr. Chair.
11,400. How is derating computed? There's always a derating of about 30%. Ainad, you know.
So it depends on the age of the plant, and for ERC, they actually submit to us. They have submissions to us annually on the capacity of the plant.
No, but the derating, whenever the Secretary brought this up in the last two hearings, you know, when they say they're offering you 100 megawatts, they really tend to deliver only 70. Now, that's either a technical derating, or that is because they feel at certain times they want to keep some reserve for themselves, no?
Mr. Chair, the derating basically is it's declared with ERC that certain plants are, only capable of producing this much, and that is what NGCP uses. We use the NGCP data for our available capacity and the dependable capacity. So that includes hydro, Mr. Chair, because there are permanent deratings, which is a plant which is supposed to be, say, 600 megawatts. It can only produce 500. They register with ERC because otherwise, if they don't, during the market operation, we'll always be looking for the original declaration that they have. So in order for us not to count them and not be penalized for that, they have to actually register with ERC. That is a permanent derating. There are seasonal deratings as well. And this goes for the hydro, the derating for the hydros. The derating for the hydros, although the derating is not declared with ERC because they still have the capacity actually, but NGCP more or less, okay, they get all the generators to give a projection on what their output will be based on water availability. So in a sense, the derating there is something that is declared with ERC, okay, and there is also some deratings that are conferred with NGCP as far as hydro is concerned.
Now, what would be your estimate of how much hydropower we will lose between December and April next year? Magkano mawawala sa amin? Ilan mawawala sa atin?
Mr. Chair, DOE had a meeting with Pag-asa and together with NPC because most of the hydros are actually with NPC, including Kalayaan. They had a discussion and submissions of data.
Why do you say most of the hydros are with NPC?
These are the bigger capacity hydros, okay, like the Kalayaan, which where the government is managing right now. But we're also getting information from other private hydros.
Kalayaan would not be able. Would we get an accurate reading from Kalayaan? Because that's a pump storage, so they can always refill it during the day. I don't think they will lose much between December and April. The ones that will lose a lot would be Magat, Ambuklao, Binga, San Roque, Pantabangan, Angat.
Can you answer? Mr. Chair, can I ask NPC
Yes, please.
to answer this, please?
Gladys, is that you? Yeah.
What we have here is actually the store capacity of the hydros is about 2,452 megawatts.
Hydro is 2,460. Can you give us a
2,452 megawatts.
452?
Yes. Then the dependable capacity, more or less, during normal season is actually 2,114.
Go ahead.
But during the summer months, it will go down to about minimum of about 800 megawatts to about 900 megawatts. That is
So
during
we
the
will
period of
lose.
March to May.
We will lose about, based on dependable capacity, we lose about 1,300 megawatts.
That's right, Mr. Chair.
Let's just compare that with the numbers I got from NGCP. No? Their peak December is about 2,092. Let's say 2,100. And in April, the lowest would be 1,200. That's a loss of about 800 to 900 megawatts. So you're off there. Huh? Ang loss mo is much larger than what NGCP reports.
Well, that's actually the figures that we have, Mr. Chair. Because,
Yeah, would you like to submit those figures to us also? Because medyo
I think
malaki
this is
ang disparity. We're trying to calculate
We did, di ba?
Oh,
what would be our loss from hydro.
Sir, we already submitted po.
You did?
Yes, sir. This morning.
Because I don't know if it's yours or NGCP's, but
Di ba?
the one I have of NGCP, I will give you, so that I'll give you a copy, so that you can.
This is the combined.
Mr. Chair,
Combined
this is
with
actually a
NGCP.
combination of the data that were validated by the Department of Energy using.
I cannot understand you. Would you like to bring the mic closer, because I
Mr.
really
Chair,
can't.
this is actually a combination of the data that was submitted by NGCP and NPC. For NGCP, the figures for Calayan and San Roque were taken from NGCP. And the others were coming from NPC, based on our historical data before.
The others came from NPC.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I'm at a loss.
Uh,
Does NPC operate ang Buklaw?
we are no longer operating
Does
on
it
cloud,
operate ang GAT?
but we have certain information because the dams management is still with us.
So, can the committee depend on the numbers that were submitted by NGCP?
As far as Calayan and San Roque, Mr. Chair, these are the information that we.
No, you're not answering my question. Can the committee depend on the numbers that were furnished the committee by NGCP?
Yes, sir.
Because all of the transmission lines. So they
Miss-
would know, di ba?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair,
Katap. Yes.
can I just on the related matter? The table I'm holding right now is actually the most updated information as far as capacity of the hydros is concerned. And this was actually a DOE, NPC, and NGCP meeting that they agreed on these particular numbers. This was agreed on, kailan po? 2 weeks ago? Last week lang, Mr. Chair. Perhaps if I can ask NGCP to provide you the most updated, because they had a meeting also with Pag-asa, Mr. Chair, just recently on recent developments. So
No, but I'm not worried about recent developments. I'm looking for historical first, no? So they gave me 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, and 2014. Ito mga actual ito. For the months of January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, except for 2014 hanggang September lang. So I would imagine that they would know. But I'm willing to give you a copy of this and give me a copy of what you have. But the disparity is quite big. I'm only getting a difference of about 900 and you're saying it's 1,300. Why would your numbers be more accurate than what goes through the transmission line?
Mr. Chair.
Ilapit mo nga yung...
Yes, Mr. Chair. These figures were taken from historical data, and we got the historical data from Calayan, from NGCP and as far as Calayan, because that was a part of the previous discussions on the determination of the actual capacity of these hydros during summer months.
No, I'm not only asking for summer months.
Summer months. Okay.
I was asking for December
Okay.
and April. So because I wanted to compare the high with the low. And I would imagine you're using the December numbers for your installed capacity, for your dependable capacity of 11,000.
Yes, yes.
Okay? So therefore, I want to know how much we lose or we can expect to lose just because of hydro. Got it?
Hindi kasi nga may El Nino.
It's about 1,200 megawatts, Mr. Chair. The dependable capacity is basically the capacity that's available during the December when we have the water or the dams filled to the
You know, I'm
elevation.
not even too sure now if this is dependable capacity alone because I see here in July it's even lower, 1,082. But maybe it's because there's so much power elsewhere that they don't have to dispatch. Pero pinakamababa, July pala, oh, the next page. Previous to that, it's May, 1,287, April, 1,309, March, 1,729, February, 1,903, December, 2,094. So anyway, is this the one that you sent over? Ito ba? No, it's not. So, may we have a Xerox copy of your pakopya mga please. Now, another important issue, Mr. President, is some of the peaking plants have ceased to operate because of the 6 peso secondary cap. And it's understandable if it's costing them 12 pesos and they cannot bid higher than that, hindi na lang sila mag-ooperate. Of course, we understand their financial situation. My question is, do you have an estimate of how many megawatts we lost because of that? For example, Bawang is not bothering to it's going to rehab only 20 megawatts. I know Bawang's got 220 megawatts there.
Do not have, Mr. Chair, an estimate of the number of capacity we lost because of the secondary cap.
I think we may have lost about between 230 and even more. Bawang lang, nakikita ko 200 megawatts nakatiwangwang ngayon doon. Of course, that for a diesel plant that's older, no? It's about 15 years old siguro. But still, they're willing to rehab. if we do away, or not exactly do away, but I mean, give them a proper return, no? You're willing to pay 14 pesos to the gensets, you are not willing to pay 14 pesos to Bawang. That doesn't make sense to me, no? Di ba?
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
The secondary cap is now under review, and hopefully on November...
No, wait. I just want to discuss concept. Okay? We will have a meeting on the secondary cap so we can run through the numbers. But what I'm saying is that because of your 6 peso secondary cap, whatever it might translate to, it might actually be 8 or something, you've set aside the peaking plants that are in existence because they're peakers and that are they've stopped operations because they cannot take that kind of a loss, no? Now, I want to estimate how much that is because I know it's sizable, and we can add that. I mean, if we were willing to pay for imported diesel plants at a capacity fee of 25 pesos per kilowatt hour, and we're willing to pay 14, more or less it's 14 pesos, no? Under the protocol which the ERC enunciated under Resolution number 8, series of 2010. So it will be about 14 pesos. Wala, hindi naman pinag-aawayan yan. All of the gensets agree. And then here we've got these diesels, and we're saying, no, you have to bid it to the OSM, and we have a cap rate of 6 pesos. It doesn't make sense to me. We have a lot of excess supply here. Ano reaction mo, Mr. Secretary? Does that make sense to you?
Well, we had a discussion, Mr. Chair, with the generators. I had a discussion with ERC as well on this matter, on the secondary cap, because
May I interrupt you? I'm not talking about the actual secondary cap. I'm just talking about the concept of putting a cap much lower than what we're willing to pay the genset operators, because in effect we have removed the normal peaking plants from the grid. Would you agree that doesn't make sense anymore under the situation?
Well, it's put it this way, Mr. Chair, because they're using two different fuels, for example, and this one is a power plant. It does make sense for the plants to actually run, the real plants to actually run. As far as I'm concerned, I'm even talking about reliability. Okay, it's if we have IPPs who can run in the market without actually invoking the ILP. Okay, that's even better because the reaction is quite quicker and they have larger capacities. So if they get paid, okay, about the same level as the ILP, there's no reason for them not to actually rehab their plants.
That's why, but because they're registered and they bid into the WESM, they're limited. Wouldn't it protect us better if you say raise the cap to 14 or 15 pesos and let them bid into the WESM?
Mr. Chair?
It might even come out with a lower WESM price. Hindi ba? Marami naman dyan. Yes.
Mr. Chair, actually, as the Chair said, the secondary cap is actually being evaluated. But just to clarify, it's not really 6 pesos.
I know. That's why I said
that's why it
if
goes
it
up
averages
as high
8
as
pesos,
21 pesos. They can play
but
around
what
with
I'm
that.
worried about is somehow it has managed to edge out some of
peaker.
these
Sir,
peaking plants.
yeah. Just to clarify also, for the existing peaking plants, like for example, Bawang, the issue I believe with the rehabilitation is not so much on the secondary cap and what it cost them, but on the regulated price that was imposed in November, December, because they were supposed to use revenue from that to add more
Yeah, that's
units.
another thing. Can we not release that money already?
We've already moved forward with that, sir, so that they can actually already apply for the fuel component. The ERC has done that. And then, sir, also those peaking plants actually entered into interim power supply agreements, IPSAS, during the summer period with Meralco.
Yeah.
And those were the rates that were given them, the 14, the 11, the 12, different, but ranging around that.
That's why I was asking you, my first question is, how many megawatts have we lost from the retirement of peaking plants because of these problems, no? We might, whatever it is, we might be able to bring 100 megawatts, 150 megawatts back into the system, and that's going to be a sizable addition.
Sir, maybe we can ask for data from PEMC because they would have the data on the bilateral contract quantities that were declared, as well as the nominations which really went as a merchant or as a commercial transaction in the WESM for diesel. I believe PEMC would have that.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
The information being requested, MC can provide the commission on that.
Okay. All right. Now, what about the Hanjin people? Go ahead. I'll ask my questions elsewhere. Um, in the last hearing, we were going through the budget of PNOC alternative fuels, Mr. Tupas. I got a notice that the GOCC has legislated you out of business, and also for ano yan? Renewable development. Yeah. Well, maybe you can be absorbed by the secretary in the DOE. The ERC, I receive your budget, 70 million, the extra. Yeah,
Yes,
okay,
Mr. Chair.
we will include that. Mr. Secretary, the 70 million is for them to hire foreign consultants because they're more experienced, and there's nothing wrong with hiring foreign. Meralco does it the whole time, you know. Next, Mr. Secretary, is I was going to suggest that you get an extra budget for a public information campaign. Can you please just give us a round number, just write to us, because whatever we say from the other budgets, we want to pass that on to the same department, no? But I've always admired the other countries when they have this information campaign on energy conservation, how to do this, how not to do that, and even the kids become conscious of it, which is very important because it's the kids that leave the lights on in the house, no? And so we'd like maybe to launch a really nationwide campaign, because I was wondering, for example, di ba we have Earth Day every year? Turn off your lights at 8 o'clock. Well, maybe the secretary can, during the summer, let's say, pakiusap lang lahat ng mga opisina, 11 o'clock, patayin na ninyo air conditioning ninyo. I mean, if it is possible, no? Because at 12 o'clock, people leave anyway for lunch. They come back at 1, you can start it again, but turn it off at 4, because they leave at 5. And so, if we're just conscious of especially the consumption between 11 to 2, 5 to 8, even the kids will be joining in the moment they come home from school at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 5 o'clock. But you can brainstorm that, and I think that we can appreciably, even during that short gap, bring down consumption of energy. Not energy, but electricity. Is that okay with you?
Most welcome, Mr. Chair, if we have additional budget for this. We are also, as you have suggested, we are already going to launch on December the information campaign. We can do more with additional budget for next year. And this is regarding energy savings. Why December? Because we want to validate how much we will save on energy savings, okay, as early as now. So we can project the summer savings that we'll be having just in case all these energy measures are done.
The only problem is they're putting up the Christmas lights already. So, I don't know how to say this, but my wife wanted to put it up a month earlier, and I said no. Hindi ba, it was already going to be, the Christmas trees are put up at about November 1 after All Saints Day, but she wanted to put it up October 1. And I said, di, kakain lang ng electricity yan. As a matter of fact, I asked her to postpone it to December 1 kung pwede lang. But, you know, that's our culture, and it's a nice, it's the best season of the year. Everybody's merry, everybody's happy. But, I mean, you know, we can always enjoy it anyway without having too many lights. Now, there was another item I would like to bring up with you.
Mr. Chair, if I can share some experience for 2014, because we did experiment because our reserves were actually very thin summer of 2014, we experimented in the Department of Energy family. Actually, they're all here. If we can turn off our air conditioners starting 10:30 and put it back up again at around 11:30, 12 o'clock.
Why will you put it back on at 12?
Because the peak hours that we were trying to avoid were 11 and 2 o'clock. So
Okay.
we actually started with turning it off at 10:30, turning it on at 2:30.
2:30, not 12:30. Okay.
2:30 muna, Mr. Chair. And what happened was, I think a lot of people fainted. So we had to adjust it again. Okay, ginawa namin, in-isolate na lang namin yung 11 o'clock, 10:30 to about 12. Still, a lot of people were getting sick. And that's when we adopted the 25 degrees rather than turn it off. But we continually experiment with all measures and see overall effects to the employees.
The 25 is hotter than 24.
It is. Okay, but during that summer,
So many fainted at 24, so you said 25 degrees na lang.
no, we turned it off. Ang ginawa namin, pinatay namin, Mr. Chair. That's when a lot of people fainted. Kaya ginawa namin 25 degrees na lang. A lot of people are still complaining, but I think it was livable at that time. When the
Instead of turning it off, keep it on, but put it at 25.
25.
Yes.
even ECCP was questioning us at one point whether 25 is actually, there were some members actually questioning 25, and they were saying that we're out of our mind. But we asked them to experiment. They came back to us and said 25 is actually acceptable.
Yeah. But you see, because of the peak, that's good for consumption. You're saving on the consumption of diesel or bunker or natural gas. But because there's a peak between 11 and 2, that does not really address that. Turning it off addresses it. Now, I would like to see in your bill how much you saved by turning it off at 11. You know, here in the Senate on Fridays we don't work, no, so only my staff works. But so the Senate can say they save a lot by not coming to work on Fridays, which I've always objected to, although they've been doing it now for 10 years. But, Mr. Secretary, see, since this is a long-term program, you might also consider having people insulate, because it really saves a lot of money. And so all the new buildings, while the expensive ones are insulated, the lower cost ones don't bother with insulation. There must be a way to implement that existing buildings insulate within the next 3 years or 4 years. Ganun. But it really saved me a lot of money when I insulated the house. Roof lang. It stayed much cooler longer. And then the inverter air conditioner, they saved me 30%. So see, the advantage to the people who will implement is they save money. What about also, Mr. Secretary, maybe the ERC can study this, allow a bonus to be given, a discount. If your bill next month is 10% cheaper than this month, you get a discount. So in other words, he not only saves on the money, he gets an additional bonus. They do this in other countries, no?
Mr. Chair, there's actually a specific provision in IPIRA that ERC has jurisdiction to act on cost recovery filings for implementation by DUs of their DSM programs.
Yes. And we're very enthused to be able to support such a program because we know that will lower our aggregate demand in the grid. Now, Mr. Secretary, we have problems in the Visayas also with power. And which is why any excess in Luzon helps us in the Visayas because we can pass it on to the Visayas. And we're hopeful that we can save more in Luzon. So I would look forward to that, Mr. Secretary. Just let me know how much more you think you will need. What other, well, I had objections to the renewables. Mr. Secretary, the government is not allowed to own power facilities. Is there a way you can restructure the program of your solar panels for schools so that it's not the government that will be the owner? Maybe you can just donate it to the school right away.
We will come up, Mr. Chair, with a structure, although their focus really is on government entities rather than the private, because the private ones are being taken care of by private companies already. But we will restructure the program.
Yeah, the government entity, the schools are ideal because they only operate during the daytime, and the sunlight comes during the daytime, no? But a renewable cannot continue to own it because that's against the law. You're just waiting for a lawsuit or an anti-graft case. But if you build it and then you just donate it, you find a way, then it's the school that will own it. Anyway, halos walang maintenance yan eh. That clear? I'm not against the program. I'm against violating the EPIRA. We're not in that business. Actually, the son of one of our members of the Senate is in that business. No? So you inaugurated one of the installations, or the first installation that he set up. So we're very much encouraging that kind of activity, especially if you've got a big, broad roof, because they will save at least the transmission fee, the transmission wheeling charge. Was there any budget that I had missed? Well, anyway, you all made your presentations, those of you. And if we have any other questions, I'll read to the transcript again, and I'll just call you na lang instead of having to call for a hearing. Are there any comments? All right, Mr. Secretary, do you want to say something before we adjourn?
I think everything's been said, Mr. Chair. I have nothing to add at this point.
All right. Technically, we will be. I got a request from the chair of the House Energy Committee, who also is my co-chair in the JCPC, for a JCPC meeting, and I said yes. Let's try and find time to do that. But in any case, the JCPC is merely the oversight for the implementation of the EPIRA. So we will be sending you notice when we call such a meeting, but it will be subject to the availability of the members of the House and the JCPC and the members of the Senate. But Mr. Secretary, I just want you to know this, that my personal hope and my personal target is 1,000 megawatts for Luzon under the ILP. If possible, 1,200 megawatts. And I think it can be achieved. So I'll just coordinate with you so that we can help resolve some of the problems. Let me just inform you that I don't call them here any longer to the Senate because they refuse to talk in front of the Secretary and in front of the ERC. but they have asked me to private meetings, about 10, 20 of them. These are the PIPA members, these are the possible ILP members. And they were just explaining to me the problems, why. And so I saw these were all solvable problems. Kailangan lang kausapin ng ERC, kung pwede ito, pwede ganyan. And to make it to make it easier for them to join rather than to make it so difficult for them that they will just say ayoko na, di ba? But remember, if we get only 1,000 megawatts, that's only less than 10% of our installed capacity. Mahiya naman tayo. Cebu cannot do 15 and we'll do 10. And you have bigger generating sets in Luzon, and you have bigger groups in Luzon. So like I said, SM alone, I counted already 151 megawatts. So it should be not too hard for them to ask them to commit at least 120. Derate it to 90, but at least that's double what they are committing now. Anyway, it's just for those. How many hours all in all, Mr. Secretary, are we talking about? About 390 hours.
Depends on the performance of the plants as well, Mr. Chair. Kung ilan yung outage, because we
Yeah.
have to factor that in.
But maximum 390. If you do 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's 30 times 13 weeks. That's 390, di ba?
Correct, Mr. Chair.
So the more we get, we can split it na. I mean, if we can get 1,500 from the ILP, sasabihin namin, 3 hours lang kayo. And, you know, this is the emergency power that we've always looked forward to. We don't spend for it. In other words, we don't buy the equipment, but it's available because the private sector already paid for it. And I'm glad that the ERC supported this in the Visayas, because now we have a model, di ba? It works. We know the percentages. We know how the mechanics should be done, and we're looking forward to being able to solve that problem with the RESA para smooth. And the Hanjin, Mr. Secretary, they have excess power. They can offer it into the grid, di ba? All they have to do is get the NGCP to... Konektado na sila.
Hanjin, we're scheduled to talk with them, Mr. Chair. But just like Texas, I think the issue that they have in our conversation is that they're currently paying 6 cents right now, 6 US cents. So the difference is a bit big, and to pass it on as a regular ILP might be a problem. That's their only concern at this point.
But we can give them a special. The other day or yesterday, I already told the press that I'm willing to recommend to the committee to use 1 billion pesos out of the Malampaya Fund. Now, you know, that goes to another law. That goes to the... What was that, PD? Huh? Yeah, Presidential Decree 910. What did they call it? Oil? The Oil and Natural Gas Exploration Development, signed by Ferdinand Marcos, no? That's where the Malampaya Fund comes from. That is what we have to amend, because in that law it says that energy development, okay, the Supreme Court says energy related, but maybe we should broaden that. But that's where otherwise this becomes an appropriation measure, and we'll leave that to the Ways and Means. But in any case, we will get it done. We can get it done. So there should be no worry about refunding Hanjin or Texas Instrument, or even having funds for your energy conservation education program, which should be a continuing thing over 5 years, for example, or 10 years. Unfortunately, we have a very warm country, so we really use a lot of electricity in our homes. So having said that, I would like to thank all of you for coming here today. Lunch is being served. Nasaan yung lunch nila? Okay, and this hearing is hereby adjourned. Thank you for coming.